One of the most exciting teams in Major League Baseball this year is the San Diego Padres. What they've done at the trade deadline last year and this offseason make it even so. We get an extension from Manny Machado and so much more. Let's talk about here at the Row Report episode of the OK Baseball podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome in to the Row Report here at the OK Baseball podcast. I'm your host, Christian Rao. This is presented by Slasher Sports. Got a great episode for you today as we continue our 30-team preview here. We're going to talk about the San Diego Padres, and it is going to be a fun episode. The Padres are, dare I say, a World Series favorite this year. Joining me today, Dominic Stearn. Dominic's been a friend of Slasher Sports. He's been on a couple other baseball podcasts at Slasher Sports, helping out our friend Billy Graves. But the first time I get to sit down with you, Dominic, it's been quite some time. I've actually been looking forward to doing this. How's it going? You obviously work for EVT, East Village Times, doing stuff for the San Diego Padres. Love to talk Padres with you today. How's everything been?
Yeah, it's good. Long-time follower, first-time podcast guest. So I'm super excited to be here. Like you mentioned, it's pretty exciting time over in Padres land. I've been covering the team for 3.5 years now. It's been a lot of fun, and hopefully it's going to be even more fun this year.
Yeah, one of the best stadiums to go to. I was stationed in San Diego for quite some time, and I've actually been to Petco more than any other park in MLB. I used to go down the gas lamp all the time when I was stationed in Point Loma, and I just really enjoyed my time there. And the atmosphere is fantastic. They didn't have a good team when I was there. This was almost a decade ago. They didn't have a good team then, but now you're getting that amazing atmosphere and just star talent out the yin yang. It's going to be absolutely insane to watch these players. I want to see if they can put it all together. But before we get into that, I really want to I'd like to just take a brief look back at what last year looked like for the Padres. And it was a good season still. I mean, trade deadline obviously was a big deal for them getting Juan Soto, but the season ended with an 89-73 record, good enough for second place in the NL West. However, the biggest thing in that one I think you can take from is you beat the Dodgers in the playoffs. That was almost like a World Series of their own. What's your thoughts on 2022 and moving that into the offseason, all that good stuff? Obviously, the Dodgers postseason has a good taste in your mouth, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was a very tumultuous regular season because before they played any games, you go to spring training, you're really excited after a disappointing season, and then you hear like second day of camp, Fernando Tatis Jr. needs wrist surgery and is going to be out for 3 months. And you're immediately like, all right, just be 500 when he gets back and you'll have a shot to get into the playoffs. And then 3 months became 4 months. And then the trade deadline comes, you get Juan Soto, you get Josh Hader, you get Josh Bell, and you just cannot wait to see this big lineup like all juiced together. And then I was literally recording a podcast episode when the news broke from Jeff Passan in Major League Baseball when he got suspended for PEDs. And it was just extremely disappointing because it felt like he was a kid who could do no wrong, and it was a year where all he did was wrong. And I think a lot of Padres fans are really excited to see him return this year. And, you're going to forgive the guy when he's going to go out and play like how he does and be super entertaining. It's obviously going to be a stain on his image, but I think that building off of last year, like you mentioned, going into the playoffs, they beat the 101-win Mets, beat the 111-win Dodgers. It really couldn't have been a better start to the postseason. Then you face the 87-win Phillies, who are just red hot, and the Padres didn't really get any breaks in that series. They're a couple of pitches away from bringing that back to Petco in Game 6. It didn't happen. I don't think anyone has any regrets, though.
Yeah, it was a fantastic postseason run by the team, especially all the adversity that they had to face in the offseason, as you mentioned. I want to keep touching base on Tatis here. Obviously, he's going to return this season, but he's not going to be returning to his normal infield position. It looks like he's going to be playing the outfield, especially with the addition of Xander Bogaerts. How do you think that's going to be? We've heard that from a couple of players in the league. Jazz Chisholm is one that I can think of, and obviously Tatis Jr., some big names that are going to move into the outfield. Brand new position. Obviously, that's going to bring a little bit of stress to you, knowing that you also have to come back after being off for an entire year, and your full-time position is now different. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, luckily he got to play a little bit of outfield at the end of the 2021 season, so it's not like completely new. It's still relatively new for sure, but
Mhm.
he's an elite athlete, as is Jazz Chisholm. So like the transition's not going to be this, oh, Andrew Vaughn's a first baseman, but we already have 2 first basemen on the roster. Let's throw him out in the outfield and see how he does. It's not going to be like that. He's got a cannon arm. He's extremely athletic. He tracks baseballs during batting practice, even back before he went out to the outfield. So he's going to look good out there. He's not going to be a Gold Glove outfielder. At least I don't know anyone thinks that, but he's going to do a fine job out there. And I think it's smart that they're going to move Juan Soto back to left field and put Tatis in right, and he can really showcase his arm. You also have your glove going down the line side, and you have Trent Grisham in the middle, 2-time Gold Glover in 3 full seasons in Major League Baseball. I don't think it's going to be a big deal. It's really about if he can stay healthy, and I think that this move is going to help him do that.
Yeah, even the role players on this team, like you mentioned, Trent Grisham, I don't think people talk about him enough. I think he's going to be really undershadowed this year. He's already having a great spring. I guess we might as well talk about the thing that just happened recently. Speaking of that pennant you have behind on the wall, Manny Machado signs an 11-year contract extension, $350 million. Now he's essentially a $500 million player. I mean, you look at that after this contract. I mean, what a crazy scenario, crazy saga that happened. We heard about a week and a half prior that he was going to opt out at the end of the season. Padres don't even let him get through the month of February without holding him down and making him a Padre for life. What's your thoughts of getting Manny for the rest of his career in Gaslamp?
Well, he said it in his press conference after that he's going to go into the Hall of Fame with the Padres cap on his shoulder. Now, he's still got some things he needs to do to get to the Hall of Fame, but he's certainly on the trajectory to doing so. He's only 31, or he's only 30, excuse me. He's already got 1,500 hits. He's already got 2 Gold Gloves. He should have more, but he's happens to be in like the golden era of defensive third basemen. Matt Chapman, when he was back with the Orioles in the American League, and now he's going to deal with Nolan Arenado. He's a lot better than being a 2-time Gold Glover defender, and I think just about anyone can see that. And he's very durable, so you're not like as worried when you're giving him an 11-year contract later in his career as you would be for someone else like an Aaron Judge per se. You just got to hope that the first 6 to 7 years of this contract are going to be productive and that the Padres can get a World Series, because if it doesn't, it could get ugly for him. It could get ugly for Xander Bogaerts. And if you're paying those guys a lot of money and they're not producing that much or they're not on the field that much, it's going to be weighing them down. But as we saw just with this offseason, contract prices are going to continue to go up. So in 6 or 7 years, he signed the largest contract in free agent history 5 years ago, and he had the 11th largest contract prior to this contract extension that he just got. So as the years go on, Juan Soto's going to have a bigger contract. Shohei Ohtani's going to have a bigger contract. I know that Julio Rodriguez signed a contract extension, so he's technically not there yet, but with the incentives, he's eventually going to have a bigger contract than that. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is probably going to have a bigger contract than that. It's going to weigh itself down a little bit towards the end of this contract, too.
Still wild. Do you think Manny Machado should have won National League MVP over Paul Goldschmidt last year? I know that's still an easy conversation. Just remember, this is the Padres preview, so the bias is okay. You're probably going to have some Padres listeners out there.
Right. I mean, like, I am a Padres fan. I do cover the team, but when I do so, I make sure to take my Padres hat off. I attend journalism school here at Arizona State, so I know how to do that. It's a tough conversation because statistically, Paul Goldschmidt was better. There's no doubt about that. But why was he statistically better? Well, he had a much better lineup around him. He hit in a much more hitter-friendly ballpark. He wasn't playing on an injured ankle all season. There are a list of things, and when you consider the fact that Machado also played really good defense, essentially carried a team to the playoffs, the rotation obviously was really good, but the lineup for the most part was bad. Even when Juan Soto was in a Padres uniform during the regular season, it's not like he was producing a ton. You know, if I had a vote, I would have voted for Manny Machado, but like, it's pretty easy for me to look at it and see that's why Paul Goldschmidt won MVP. But I think a lot of the baseball writers who did have an MVP vote respected what Machado did, and he got more votes, at least statistically, than he should have. So I think a lot of people did see his value there. I'm a big Paul Goldschmidt fan. I love baseball. I got to watch him basically firsthand in the NL West for several years. He should have won an MVP when he was in Arizona. He should have beat out Andrew McCutchen that one year. So I think it's justice serving him, but he probably shouldn't have got it over Machado considering what he did.
Like it. All right. This offseason was absolutely insane in San Diego. Not just the fact that the winter meetings were held in San Diego, but what San Diego actually did with Aaron Judge being a possibility, knowing that there was a huge signing or there was a huge offer by San Diego to get Aaron Judge over. Obviously, it didn't happen. But immediately after that was reported, Xander Bogaerts comes over in a free agent signing, a huge one indeed as well. I mean, covering up the middle, Xander Bogaerts, it seems like when that trade happened, or I'm sorry, that free agency signing happened, it sounded like it was just the entire lineup was all basically shortstops with Kim and Bogaerts and Tatis and Machado, you name it. Adding a guy like Xander Bogaerts to this middle of this lineup and really protecting the center, adding that value, especially with shift restrictions, going to be huge for San Diego's lineup. What's your thoughts at Bogaerts in his long contract? I know we're talking about this with Machado signing another long one, but you got Bogaerts staying probably for the rest of his career in San Diego as well.
Yeah, Bogaerts is another extremely durable player too. So at least at the beginning, you're not as worried about it. And it's the same thing. You need the first 6 to 7 years to be extremely productive. The reason the Pujols contract did not age well is because he had 3 productive seasons and then was horrible after that, wasn't on the field all the time. So it's all about finding ways to keep him healthy and make sure that he can be as productive as possible. And fortunately, the Padres have a bunch of other shortstops that they could, circle in and say, all right, Xander, you can be DH once a week. Nelson Cruz and Matt Carpenter are at the point of their careers where they probably can't be in the lineup every day. I'm not exactly sure how that's going to happen, but I'd like to think that's what they're going to be able to do with the possibilities they have. You mentioned it, all those shortstops and the shift going away. It's part of the strategy the Padres are trying to have. Last year, the Red Sox imposed a strategy of playing Xander Bogaerts further back, and it helped his defense out a lot because prior to that, he was not a very good defensive shortstop. I'm not sure if that's going to continue. It should, because the Padres saw that it was successful. And without the shift, I don't know how much he's going to be able to do. But knowing that you have Manny Machado to cover the hole, you have Ha-Seong Kim going up the middle for you as well. I think Xander Bogaerts is going to be a good addition. And yeah, the lineup is obviously much more improved. One of the most consistent hitters in all of baseball. It doesn't have a ton of slug, but there have also been some writers who have pointed out that he doesn't have the green monster anymore that he's going to hit into. Xander Bogaerts isn't, you don't think of him as a power hitter. You think of him as a line drive hitter. And some of those line drives that go off the green monster are going to be some home runs out there in Petco, especially the higher you hit it, the more the wind and the dense air is able to keep it in. So I think there's some give and takes to this deal. I wasn't the biggest fan, but it was actually funny because Xander Bogaerts was at a Suns game here in Phoenix the night that he signed. And my roommate is a massive Celtics fan, massive Boston sports fan. And they were playing the Celtics that night, which is why Xander Bogaerts was there. And he saw Xander Bogaerts there and was like, Xander, you got to come back to Boston. And Xander's like, I'm not going back to Boston. So I knew he wasn't going to be a Red Sox that night. And he texted me, and I was actually sitting on my toilet right down there when the news happened. You're getting all the details here on the Route Report.
I love it.
And I got the alert from Heyman, because of course it's a Boris client. It's always going to be from Heyman that he signed with the Padres. And so I FaceTimed my buddy at the game, and I'm like, Xander's going to the Padres. The report just came out. He goes, oh, well, that explains why I saw Xander Bogaerts get a phone call and walk out of the arena 5 minutes ago. So
Man.
My friend basically got to see it unfold in person.
That's some juicy details. Maybe not the toilet one, but the rest of it's pretty good. I like that. I mean, with this lineup, it's just superstars galore, and I think that might be the title of this podcast, is just superstars galore in Gaslamp. And we talk about Bogaerts, we talk about Machado, and the trade deadline obviously started this turn as well with the bringing in of Juan Soto. Now, last year when he came over to San Diego, wasn't the same Juan Soto. He struggled a little bit. Postseason kind of turned it around, started to see a little bit of more of that Soto that we saw in Washington. But now, well, a lot of people also say that trades can impact you. It can impact players in many different ways. We saw it with Josh Hader as well. Seeing a guy like Juan Soto in a full season in the San Diego Padres uniform, I mean, this is a guy that also could be seeing huge contracts like Shohei Ohtani, Juan Soto could see one of those, maybe another $500 million contract in the works. What do you think about Juan Soto in a full year with the Padres?
Well, he's the National League MVP favorite right now for a reason. It's because he is that guy. And I am under the belief that Juan Soto was playing injured last year because his sprint speed was down, his defensive numbers were down. He was actually a really good defender in the 2021 season, which was kind of shocking because he was always a below average defender out in the corner outfield positions. And he wasn't hitting the ball that well, and he was extremely passive. He still was walking all the time. So he was still a productive hitter. No one's going to deny that. And he still hit the ball hard, but he wasn't the Juan Soto that we saw in 2021 where he was MVP runner-up, where he had the best statistical 2020 season. He just missed the first week and a half of the season when he got COVID. And then in 2019, where he was arguably the best hitter on a World Series winning lineup. So he's going to return to that form. I'm pretty confident in that. That's not like some breaking news you're getting here. That's just about what everyone's reporting. He hit a moonshot in the spring training game on Sunday. I think all signs are pointing towards him being an MVP finalist again. And I think that's extremely exciting. I bought a Juan Soto jersey back because their City Connect jersey is gorgeous in Washington. And so I'm like, I love Juan Soto. I'm going to get this jersey. And then I brought it to Florida. So I was wearing it around the summer when I was in Florida when he got traded to the Padres. I wore it to the first game I went to back when I got there. So it was really cool. I think he's going to have a tremendous year. All signs are really pointing to that. And he was one of those hitters who was hurt by the shift, just hitting hard ground balls that are going to be singles or possibly even doubles if they hit the gaps the right way. He's going to have a great year. Don't be surprised by that. But like I said, that's not exactly breaking news.
We might not see too many plate intimidations and the Soto shuffles because of the pitch clock, things like that. We might not see many of that. I was watching.
I never thought of that.
Yeah, I was watching the Mariners Padres game, the first spring training game just the other day, and it seemed like he didn't have time to do it. I was waiting for it. It's like, there was a couple opportunities where, last year he would have gone and done that, maybe a jammed in strike or a ball coming into his hands, but he didn't have the opportunity to do so. So I wonder if we're going to see maybe that disappear, or when it does, it'll just be that much more exciting. This rotation this year is also another exciting thing. Obviously, Yu Darvish could see extension. Padres just are growing money on trees, which is a fantastic feeling to have as a fan. Yu Darvish is going to be a Padre until he's age 42. Joe Musgrove, obviously a fantastic piece. We saw him, what he did into the Padres, making Padres history with that no-hitter. And then Blake Snell, I'd like to see him kind of resurrect himself after the last couple of years. And then the addition of Michael Wacha. I think that's also a really good one. You could also talk about there's other few pieces in this rotation as well, such as Martinez for Lugo, who have both seen rotation and bullpen pieces. What's your thought of this rotation? Because right now, I think that a lot of people are saying that this is their weak part. This team seems like a powerhouse, but you could make the consideration that their rotation is their weakness. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, the rotation could be deemed a weakness because they have the big three. I think that's what most people are going to look at. You're going to see Yu Darvish, who was phenomenal last year. Blake Snell, who has his ups and his downs. His ups are really good. His downs at times make you question what is he doing out there? How does this happen? And then Joe Musgrove, first no-hitter, has been fantastic with the Padres, was absurdly good in the postseason last year. So the rotation has its question marks, though, because Michael Wacha, he's a very experienced pitcher. I don't think people, when someone said the Padres should consider Michael Wacha, I immediately scoffed and said, no, like this dude was pitching back in 2013 and he hasn't been as good of as late. And then someone's like, he's only 31. And I'm like, oh, well, that would make him one of the younger pitchers on the staff as well. So he had an interesting year last year. The peripheral said he wasn't as good as he actually was. So we'll see what the give and takes are there. And then Nick Martinez and Seth Lugo, not traditional starting pitchers, were far better as relief pitchers last year. They're going to try and start them. And I think the Padres are going to try and operate with a six-man rotation like they did for a good chunk of last year until they couldn't after the trade deadline. And that allowed the starting pitchers to be a little more fresh because they weren't pitching as much. And then you saw him go on in the postseason. Yu Darvish goes and deals against the New York Mets. Joe Musgrove was fantastic, almost as good as Yu Darvish was against the Mets. And you go face the Dodgers. Yu Darvish was really good, 6 innings, only 3 runs. It's a quality start. Blake Snell, 5 innings, 1 run. Joe Musgrove, 6 innings, 2 runs. Go against the Phillies. Darvish was really good. Blake Snell had an interesting start with some errors, some bloopers. And then Joe Musgrove, 6 innings, 3 runs. Those guys went out there and they were really good late in the season. And that allowed them, despite the lineup not being good, to continue to push and still be successful.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what this rotation can do. I think Nick Martinez is an interesting candidate. I really do. Watching him in the first spring training game, obviously going to see him in the World Classic as well. There's a lot of players on this team that are playing in the World Classic. You could probably, I haven't put this on paper, but I would, if I had to make an estimate, I would say probably more Padres than any other team that has the more players in the World Classic this year. How is that going to impact them being ready for opening day, especially because the new rules of 2023 are not being implemented over to the World Classic? How do you think that's going to impact them being ready for March 30th?
I actually didn't know the WBC is not going to have those new rules, so that's another interesting dynamic. But these guys, they're going to go out there and get a lot of reps before they leave in the coming week. So they're going to get those spring training looks with the coaching staff. And I think that's important. But at the same time, Nick Martinez is going to go and get 1 start over a potential 3-week span. Like, that's a little concerning, to say the least. He originally left the Team USA roster because they wanted him to be a bullpen pitcher. He's like, I'm going to start this year. So that's not going to go over very well. So he went back to the Padres. But since Kershaw and Cortez can no longer be in the WBC, he went back because they're going to need a 4th or a 5th starter. So it's going to be interesting. One player that I think is going to be really fascinating to look at is Nelson Cruz, because he's not going to be playing for the Dominican Republic team, but he's their general manager. So he's going to be in Miami for the potential 2.5, 3 weeks and not be playing at all. He's still going to go out there and probably practice with them, but not really going to be facing the live pitching, getting those feel good at bats. But you look at it, Juan Soto and Manny Machado are going to be hitting in the heart of that Dominican lineup. So they're still going to be getting those reps. It just won't be with the Padres coaching staff. There are some players more than others, like I mentioned, Martinez, that you're going to be concerned with. But then you look at Machado and Soto. I think it's going to really be on a personal basis. These guys have been thinking about this for several weeks, several months. So I don't think it's going to impact it all that much going towards the regular season, unless if a player gets hurt in the World Baseball Classic. But at the same time, say like Nick Martinez or Yu Darvish, they blow out their elbow. Why wouldn't they have blown out their elbow pitching in a spring training game? So it has its give and its takes, but the World Baseball Classic has the pitch count for a reason. It's to make sure the pitchers don't overextend themselves. Not in an exhibition game, but the World Baseball Classic is run by Major League Baseball. It knows that its Major League Baseball teams are more important than this. But I think the USA winning the 2017 World Baseball Classic, got the pennant right back here, was really big for that event. And now it's probably more important that they don't win the event so it can grow more on a global stage.
Well, even though this team has a powerhouse of players, and this team is obviously going to be a World Series contender, I still love talking about prospects, especially this year with MLB TV giving the minor leagues TV in their package. So I'm encouraging a lot of people to watch minor league baseball this year. With the Juan Soto trade last year, Mackenzie Gore was one of those big prospects that we saw in the Padres uniform. And that was one of the biggest reasons why they were able to make that move. CJ Abrams as well. What are a couple prospects you're paying attention to in the Padres system this year? Someone who might make their MLB debut, or just someone who it's worth paying attention to when looking at some of those minor league games?
It still hurts me that Mackenzie Gore's gone, especially watching Sean Manaea and Mike Clevenger get shelled in the playoffs. So gonna miss him. He already had a good outing for Washington in spring training. Yeah. So we'll see how he does over there. But the big one is Jackson Merrill, first round pick in 2021. And it's really surprising to see him go in the first round. It was a projected second or third round guy who a lot of people thought would just skip out and go to college. But AJ Preller saw something in him, saw his big frame and said he's going to be good. Drafted him under slot and then took James Wood overslot with the second round pick, and now he's the number 3 prospect in baseball according to Fangraphs. Pretty good draft right there. But Merrill, depends where you look. Some prospect evaluators have him in the top 50. Some have him in the top 20. Fangraphs has him as a top 10 prospect. He's going to be really good. Went 3 for 3 in his spring debut. They can't make that up. His first was against Diego Castillo, too. He was a really solid reliever for Seattle. So he's going to be the big guy to watch. I'd imagine they're going to start him in Double-A. Had a really fall league. Got some time at High A last year. But I think they're going to start him at Double-A. And these aren't my words, but we talked to Keith Law at our East College Times podcast in our most previous episode. And he said that he would not be surprised if Jackson Merrill, first round pick out of high school in 2021, makes it up to the major league this year. I would be surprised by that. But if they start him in Double-A, I mean, we've seen crazier things happen. We've seen a lot of players go straight from low A to Major League Baseball, especially with how weird the 2020 season was. So if he starts in Double-A, plays well, gets bumped up to Triple-A, and then continues to hit well, Padres need someone in September to help push them to an NL title, to push them into the playoffs. I wouldn't be surprised to see him up there. No one, Samuel Zavala, he's the number 2 prospect according to most evaluators. Really young guy coming out of, I believe, the Dominican Republic, but really disciplined hitter. And you don't see a lot of players have good discipline when they're young. So the fact that he is that, it really makes you think that he can build off of that. And there's a lot of evaluators and scouts who think he could be a real plus hitter for the Padres in the outfield in the next 3 to 4 years. Still a really young player. And then the last one is Dylan Lesko. He was the Padres' first-round draft pick this past year. Was a potential top 5 draft pick before he blew out his elbow and needed Tommy John surgery during this past high school season. And he's got a great fastball, can touch 98, 99 miles an hour. And one of the best high school changeups that evaluators have seen. The comp it got was Cole Hamels, as you know, pretty good changeup. And he's now a Padre too, by the way. But Lesko, he's not going to start the season just because he's still recovering from Tommy John surgery. But the hope is that he can pitch 30, 40, even 50 innings towards the end of the year, maybe even make a run in the fall league and maybe start next season in low A or even high A.
Love it. Fantastic. And you guys have one of the craziest AAA team names as well, the Chihuahuas. So, I mean, you got to have a Chihuahua hat or something, right? You got to have something, I'm sure.
So I had a Chihuahua shirt. I got it back in 2013. Or no, I got my years all mixed up. When I got my grandfather's car back when I was in high school after he passed away, and it was out in Florida. So we drove all the way across I-10 back to California. And
Nice.
I-10 blew up. So we went to the team store, checked it out, got it a Pasta Chihuahua shirt. But what I do have is right here, I have a Sod Poodles 2019 Texas League Championship pennant right there. I also have Sod Poodles championship ring from 2019.
Cool.
They are the greatest Padres minor league team of all time because they spent 1 year as an affiliate with the Padres. And they won a championship, beat the Dodgers Double-A team in the Texas League Championship. My girlfriend's from Amarillo, so I got to go visit the stadium. I also have this really cool Taylor Trammell Sod Poodles bobblehead. Nice. So we're all in on the Padres Sod Poodles bandwagon. I don't have any other Padres affiliate stuff. I used to have a Chihuahua t-shirt. Where it is, I don't really know.
I love it. Sod Poodles is a great one too. All right, let's wrap it up here. Let's get your predictions of 2023 of the San Diego Padres. Last year, as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, 89-73, good enough for second place in the NL West. They made it to the NLCS, but lost to Philadelphia Phillies. They were 22 games behind the Dodgers once the season was over. However, they did beat the Dodgers in the playoffs, so take that as you will. Here's my question to you. 89 wins, over or under? Where do you see them placing in the NL East? And do you see them returning to the NLCS or even farther in 2023?
It was crazy because the Padres didn't win back-to-back games against the Padres or the Dodgers all season, and then they won 3 straight against them in the playoffs. It was wild. And 89.5 wins, I think they do go over. I have some concerns with the starting pitching staff. Like you mentioned, I wouldn't call it the weakness of the team, but it definitely has the most potential to harm the team, because that's my way of dancing around the term weakness, because it's would be a strength for most teams. But I took a survey the other week. I project the Padres to win probably 93, 94 games. I don't think they win the NL West. I'm no fool. You don't bet against the Dodgers. If you did bet against them in the postseason, you would have made a good chunk of money, but their consistency of developing players is renowned. I think Miguel Vargas is going to be a guy that can step in the shoes of Trey Turner. He's not going to be Trey Turner, but he's going to be a good player for them. They're going to not have to put Max Muncy at DH and at second base this year. They're going to throw him at third because they have Freddie Freeman at first. They have Will Smith at catcher. They have Mookie Betts in right. They have Julio Urias. They have Clayton Kershaw. Like, they have guys. They're going to be a good team again. I think that there's a lot of Padres fans who are sleeping on the Dodgers. That's fine. Do so at your own risk. I still think the Dodgers win the West, but I think the Padres have everything. They have all the pieces, and it feels like with this Dodgers team that just won 106 games the previous year, 111 wins last year, the World Series in 2020, they won 105. They're not going to be that team this year. So the door, it's not open, but it's not closed, and there really is a chance for the Padres to win the NL West for the first time since 2006. And I've talked about this on, once again, the East Village Times podcast. I want to see them drop the Western Division champions on the Western Metal Supply Company building. Of course, you've seen that, like you mentioned. You went to Petco. They did that in 2005, and then in 2006, they won the division away from Petco. So it would be really cool to see them do that this year. I happened to be at the stadium when the Brewers lost to the Miami Marlins, which meant the Padres made the playoffs. And that was a really cool moment. It was just crazy because like everyone just like stood up and started clapping and screaming when Josh Bell was walking to the plate in the eighth inning. It was a wild scene, and I think this is also a potential year for them to like go out and win it all. Less so because Manny Machado is now going to be a Padre going forward, but before you had him going to opt out if he doesn't get a contract extension. Blake Snell is going to be a free agent at the end of the year. The Dodgers potentially are going to go and pursue Shohei Ohtani this upcoming offseason. So this year, less so now that Machado is going to be a Padre going forward. It felt like they have to win it this year, but I think they can. But I would definitely take the Padres over 89.5.
Love it. Fantastic. Dominic Stearn, everyone, thank you so much for joining this episode of the Row Report at the OK Baseball podcast covering the San Diego Padres. This is a team that I am super high on as well and can't wait to see what we are going to see from them in 2023. Before you go, let everyone know where they can find you, what your work is, what new things you have coming up, and all that good stuff. The mic is yours, my friend.
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter at DMStern19. You can see it below. Just awesome graphics you have here on the OK Baseball podcast. I got a job this upcoming summer. I'll be broadcasting professional baseball in Wisconsin, so super excited for that. It's been a dream of mine, long time coming. I didn't think I'd get to be there straight out of college. Thank you, but things have lined up. Sometimes you get lucky. I applied for like 50 jobs over my winter break. Heard back from one saying they'd like to interview me, and I got the position. So I'm super excited to get up to Wisconsin summer, broadcast some professional baseball. You can follow. I'll tweet about Padres baseball, basketball, football, just about everything in the sports world. So at DMStern19, and you can also find my personal website in there that has all of my reels and all that sort of stuff. Let me know what you think.
Fantastic. All right. We'll make sure we put all that stuff in the episode description below so you can click those links and find that. Dominic Stearn, thank you so much again for joining, and good luck on your job in Wisconsin. That's a fantastic thing. You got a voice, and you got a face, not just for radio too. So that's good. Good to hear. Fantastic. All right. That's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Row Report here at the OK Baseball podcast. Thank you so much for joining. We'll be back here with another team preview soon. I mean, we are getting now just a month away from opening day. We have plenty of content to come at you at OBP. So stick around. We'll be back here with another episode. Take care.